House of Cards podcast, the show where we break down the art of creative real estate investing. Join us as we dive into the world of real estate with insider tips and tricks for making your investments go further. From buying with no money down to flipping properties for profit, we've got you covered. Plus, stay tuned for expert guest speakers who will share their knowledge and experience in this ever-changing market. So grab a seat and get ready to learn the secrets to success in real estate investing. And now, from Alaska to New York, your hosts, Chris James and Jesse Stanton.
Yo! Good morning, guys. We're not doing from Alaska to New York today. As you guys can see, we have some amazing, phenomenal guests on here today. My BFFs, James and Angel. How you guys doing?
Good. You know, just when you think you're already in a good mood, you get on the show with Jesse and your octaves go up another 10, right?
You guys, it's so important to be around like the right group of people, like people who just bring out the best in you. And you guys certainly do that for me. We need to come up with like a nickname for you guys. Usually your guys' nickname, Angel, I don't know if you know this, but usually your nickname is Chris Angel.
Right.
Like your guys' celebrity name. I've heard. And then it's funny when I'm on the phone with Chris and James, it's not Chris and James, it's Chris James.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. Yeah. But how you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
The energy is contagious there, Jesse. Holy cow.
It is.
Well, you guys make me in a good mood. I was kind of having a rough hair day this morning. And so I was like, I'm going to go get a hat. And Angel's like, no, just do this. You got one hair that's sitting right here. I was like, all right. So I haven't done my hair yet today. And, I guess Angel, you got out the best in me. I'm just trying to get on your level. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get one more haircut to end this year, and then I'm not going to cut my hair again.
Are you going to look like me in 2024?
We'll see. Maybe we'll do the whole Axl Rose thing, man.
You're not going to cut your hair again.
I'm not going to cut my hair. I'm going to do one more haircut before the end of the year. I'll probably get it next week. And just
don't go all ZV top. Keep that cut, okay?
Oh, thanks, Angel, because I was so worried about that. I was like, man, don't know how these guys are going to take it if I go another 12 months without shaving.
Yeah, let's one thing at a time, Jesse.
Well, I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. I'm really excited to kind of dive into this a little bit. Good morning, Ken. It is chilly up here in Alaska, bro. Did you know my wife and I went to go pick up our kids yesterday at school, and she was kind of going through some of Alaska's statistics with me. And I think November of 2011 is what she said was the record year for snow in the month of November until this year. Well, I say until, I still think she said that, if I remember right, I think she said November 2011 was still the most snowfall, but this November so far is the second most snowfall Alaska has ever had, at least in this area in November. But it is chilly this morning.
I'm just hoping to get some by Christmas.
Do what?
But I'm just hoping to get some by Christmas.
Well, hey, come on up here, Angel. We've got plenty for you. You can take some back home to Kentucky with you. Dude, yes. We got to get everybody up here. Well, Pace is actually coming up to Alaska next summer. So there's going to be this big thing. Ken and I are partnering on some things, and maybe it would be kind of a cool place. You're familiar, that property down in Homer. It may be a cool place to do like a big sub-2 meetup, or we could certainly house everybody there. That would be fun.
Yeah, I don't know, Jesse. Is it big enough? I don't know.
Ken, what do you think, bro?
I already told Ken there has to be a room named after me. I've already claimed a room.
Well, the Angel Suite?
Yeah, no, I think we called it like, damn it, Ken, I can't remember. We called it. It's mine.
The Angel Suite, is that what we're calling it?
Hey, that works for me.
The Angel Suite? Okay. Ken says he's on board. Ken says he loves that. Well, actually, I don't know if he was talking about that specifically.
Love that. Of course.
Oh man.
Hair reminds me of the Grease movie.
Love it.
Thanks.
Well, like
Thanks. I'll
Danny.
take that. I'll take that.
Yeah, Flash look, the Hudson look.
No, the John Travolta look, man.
Yeah.
If you remember if you guys ever seen that movie Saturday Night Fever?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like he's like me about his hair. In that movie, like his dad hits him.
Hits him on the head.
He's like, "You hit my hair. Why you always hitting my hair? He hits my hair." That's how I feel. My kids come jump on my back when I'm sitting down to put my shoes on or something. I'm like, "Watch the hair. Always touching my hair." But that's not why we had you guys on today. I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you guys very much. Hopefully you guys are staying warm. Oh, Ken says, yeah, that works. Ken, I don't know how that sounds. It was underexcited. There wasn't enough exclamation points in this response. So I don't know if that was yeah, that works, or it's like a Jesse. I've already got the kegs ordered. Yeah, that works. I don't know if that was a sarcastic.
He's confident.
Do what?
He's confident. He's got the kegs ordered.
It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. Pam White, thank you for being here. I love you, Pam. I was actually talking with Derek this morning about a deal. James, did you talk to Derek this morning?
I don't think. Oh, I froze. I froze.
We can still hear you.
I haven't. I have not talked to Derek yet this morning.
Okay, he'll be reaching out to you. But let's talk about what we're gonna get into today. James Angel James. I'm gonna have to figure out a celebrity duo name for you guys. What are we gonna be talking about today?
We are talking about exit strategies.
Exit strategies. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love this topic. I don't think it's something that gives enough credit. Exit strategies are literally the difference between whether you turn $10,000 a year on a property or $100,000 a year on a property. I remember when I first started learning about, especially once you start like getting into the creative realm, like think of how many people disqualify or throw away a deal because when they underwrite it, it doesn't cash flow as a long-term rental.
Yes. We actually just scooped a few up because of that, right?
Yeah. Let's start there. Let's dive into that. Let's talk about some of those specific circumstances that we just closed on where it didn't cash flow and how we kind of started solving this problem.
Absolutely.
Which property should we start with?
Yeah.
Actually, maybe before we even get into that, let's start with like common misconceptions here. There's a big common misconception. When I first started getting into real estate, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing, it's obvious it's got a cash flow. I've got to be able to put a renter in here. I've got to, take into account all these things. And a lot of times it'll cash flow. But then if you got to get lending on it, a lot of people don't consider that. They totally forget that, oh yeah, out of this cash flow, I also have to pay this lender back. And now it's not going to cash flow. So what are some of the common misconceptions you guys think when it comes to cash flow and where we can pivot from there?
So the major thing that I consistently see is that there's a major misconception with whether or not it cash flows in regards to, and you kind of touched on it a little bit with the lending side of things. So most of the time, especially if you're starting off, that cash flow is important. Maybe not so much, down the road when you've got the capital yourself and you're more looking for depreciation and other things like that. But typically starting off, that cash flow is super important. And whenever you go and get lending, that a lot of times that's not considered whenever you're looking into a deal. So that first and foremost should always be, how are you going to get the money for this property? But there's a misconception that this property does cash flow. It cash flows $800 a month, but I need 80,000. Well, now it doesn't cash flow. So that's the biggest thing that I see. There's other routes that you can take. So if you can do pretty much anything in real estate. That's one of the things I love about it. If you're talking to a seller, you can, if they a heavy coffee drinker, you can buy them Starbucks for a year. You can put that in a note, and then if that's what gets them over the edge, that's what gets them over the edge, you know. But when it comes to cash flow, you can do anything. And so if it doesn't cash flow, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a deal either, because there's other exit strategies like wraps. You can, I mean, pad splits now an option. Pad splits huge. It's just not in every city yet. So the traditional long term, if it doesn't rent, it doesn't mean that, or if it doesn't cash flow long term, it doesn't mean that it's not a deal. There's just a ton of stuff. And pad split's one of the things that we've been looking heavily into, and it's been very good to us. So,
yeah. And just to add to that, it's really important when you're mapping out your exit strategy that you have more than one, right? Because, you know, even just taking it from the wholesalers in, if you're just locking it up, assuming that, you know, it's going to work for a fix and flipper or whatever, you're still limiting yourself, you know? So, as a buyer, if you're going to acquire a property, you really need to know that you've got at least 2 or more options, right? Because say you do purchase it as a long-term rental, and then you get in there and now you need another $30,000 in repairs you didn't plan on. Now your cash flow is gone, right? So you have to be able to pivot to another exit strategy. So I just think it's really important to note that you should always have more than one when purchasing a property.
I'm glad that you said that, because that's something that I am seeing more and more people do, is get themselves in this kind of pickle where they purchased this property and it's either not cash flowing, they're having contractor issues. I saw a post, as a matter of fact, this morning of a PML who lent money to somebody thinking that this was a good deal. After they got into it, it turned out that it didn't cash flow. They ran numbers wrong, all these kind of things, and they didn't have a second exit strategy on what to do. And then they started ghosting the lender. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. But talk more about that real quick, guys. I want to kind of stay here for a second. I love that is such a standard for us and our underwriting. And Chris is a big proponent of this. You guys can see Chris is out enjoying the day with his beautiful son, watching him take some guys down.
Yeah.
Some karate. So Chris, we are with you in spirit, my friend, and give Romeo our best. We're fighting with him as well. Hope you guys have an awesome day. But Chris is such a big proponent of this right from the get-go. That was one of the first things Chris said as soon as him and I started partnering was, we need to make sure that we have a minimum of at least 2 exit strategies on this. And as you guys can see with the state of the country right now, and a lot of cities like banning things like STRs, we have to be able to pivot. So let's talk about that a little bit more. James, I know you are you're underwriting for a lot of different exit strategies. Kind of what are the main exit strategies that you're employing right now when it comes to your underwriting?
So, I mean, just like you had said, STRs just really aren't, for me personally, I don't feel like they're that solid of a move, not that secure. So mostly been focusing on midterm. So a lot of the places that, you know, we're looking at buying, they have big hospitals. They have plenty of hospitals. Just the midterm rental right now, or the midterm market is phenomenal. So I'm usually looking at, if we're looking at alternate strategies other than long-term, long-term's always first. Always make sure, you know, always check the long-term numbers first. But
so long-term is priority one. When somebody sends you a deal, or when you talk to a seller and you get a contract, you get a property in your contract, that's the first thing that you're looking for is, all right, let me investigate what the long-term rental rates look like.
Correct. Yes.
What are some of the things that you guys do to even, where do you find that kind of information for people who don't know, or people who are trying to maybe still get their first deal, but understand the number side of things? Where do you guys go to even find that data?
Typically for the long term, it's a little bit easier. I'm jumping, you know, I'll go to Zillow. I'm not going to look at what the Zestimate or the rental Zestimate is, because that's never right. But I'll take a look at that. I'll take a look at truly.
They say the A in Zillow stands for accuracy, by the way.
Oh yeah, it does. It really does. Don't take my don't. But yeah, so I'll jump there, and then I'll jump to the other major real estate sites like Realtor.com, Trulia, Redfin. Just kind of see where we're sitting, like the averages. Rentometer is a really good choice if you have it. If you have somebody that has it, reach out to them and maybe they can run some numbers for you. But PropStream, Batch Leads, all those are great tools to be able to find a good idea of what the rentals are. And after underwriting so many deals, you kind of get the what's the word I'm looking for?
Tom Cruise.
The consistencies. I don't know, consistencies. So there's a certain way that, rents usually typically stay within a certain area. And once you start getting your foot through the door when it comes to underwriting, you can generally get a good idea just by looking at 2 or 3 houses, what that rent's going to be. So that's kind of how I'm checking the long-term numbers. And yes, those are always first, because just like you were saying, and what Chris says, the minimum of 2 strategies. If it cash flows even just a little bit long-term, then that gives me some warm and fuzzies, because I know if the other strategy doesn't work, then, hey, we're not negative. That's, if that doesn't work, I at least have this to where I can hold on to it until I need to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's typically how I'm going to check the long-term rentals.
Okay. Now, real quick, before we move on, I don't want to turn this into necessarily an underwriting Zoom, but for people who are understanding, because the exit strategies, obviously, this also ties into underwriting and understanding the numbers to an extent. So, I guess real quick before we dive into that, let me answer Pam's question. Do either of you guys use Privy?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm supposed to say that out loud, but no.
Yeah. I just learned Privy's really good for fix and flippers. It is great data for that, but I don't think it's necessary.
Gotcha.
Looking at other exit strategies. Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
Just
Okay.
personal preference. Right.
So when you guys are underwriting these things, how do you determine like what a good deal is and what not a good deal is? Like what types of things are you looking at? Like, does it just have to cash flow? Because I know a lot of people reach out to me and they ask like, what is your guys' buy box? I'm like, well, I think in my opinion, I think people who give a buy box, when they get so niched down, they miss major opportunities, in my opinion, because they say, well, I want a house in this city, in this zip code, in this neighborhood, this size, this many beds, this many bathrooms. It's got to be on this street. The front door has to face south, and it's got to have a green door. And I get the point of being niched, and I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek with that, if you guys can't tell. I'm being a little bit sarcastic with that. But one of the things that I have found, I mean, our buy box in a general sense, when somebody asks me what our buy box is, I'm like, dude, if it's creative, send it over. Because when people say like, well, I want this as a down payment, I want anything below 10% as a down payment, for example, 10% entry. What if the cash on cash, what if the entry was maybe 12% or even 15%? But what if the cash on cash was also 25 or 30 or 40%? So there's this balancing act that has to happen. And in my opinion, for people who put themselves in such a confined box, they miss those opportunities where even if the entry is over 10%, it still could be a killer freaking deal. But what are some of the things and factors that you guys use when you guys are underwriting properties to determine what kind of exit strategy you're going to use?
Well, I'm just going to touch on, kind of go back to something you said, because there's a lot of missing things that come into play when a wholesaler is asking you what your buy box is, or they're sending you deals, because I'm sure most people watching this can say that wholesaler, the way that they configured the entry fee or what they thought the exit strategy was best for that property, most of the time are not what you need them to be as a buyer. Okay. So I just kind of want to reiterate what you said, that the best way to say, not that I don't have a buy box, but if it's creative, just let me look at it.
Yeah.
because I'm not thinking of it linear, right? I'm not thinking of it just as an LTR. So, I would prefer just to take it and underwrite it 5 different ways to see if it works anyway, right?
100%. I trust myself to disqualify a property
Right.
instead of allowing
Right.
somebody else to try to be in my frame of mind and disqualify a property.
Yeah.
And when I'm not sure, I'm like, James.
I do the same thing. I'm like, James.
Yeah, let's look at this one together, okay?
Because there's a ton of properties. You'll see them all over Facebook that, like, if you just underwrite it with a different mind state, that property that's been sitting on there for 20 days, all of a sudden you find out cash flow is $5,000.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can cash flow a property. It doesn't, like Angel was saying, like you were saying, Jesse, LTR doesn't have to be the only route. You need more than one, and it just comes with time. And you can't be so closed-minded to completely ignore the other options. Because and you said something, and I love this, Jesse. You said so many people are looking for the lowest possible entry, right? And they completely maybe ignore this property that you just said 15%, but it's cash flowing 30. And there's the exact opposite of that too. I see it all the time. There's a 1.8 entry, 1.8% entry, and it's in Texas, and you find out that there's no cash flow at all. So
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, so you just have to have an open mind when you're looking at properties, because you can do so much, so much. Shoot, you could add 8 bedrooms to a 3-bedroom house, and then all of a sudden that property cash flows so much money you don't know what to do with it.
100%. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I know we've hammered down on LTRs. We've talked a little bit about the underwriting and things that we could use to either qualify or disqualify. Let's kind of slide into like wraps, and then we'll kind of move into some other exit strategies. But for everybody who doesn't maybe thoroughly understand quite what a wrap is, James, could you kind of explain that to everybody who's watching?
Yes. So real simple explanation. You have a set of terms on a property, or you have some sort of lending on a property. You turn around, you get this property, and you wrap your own terms around the original set of terms. It's like a bullseye. You just picture a bullseye, and then in the middle is the original, and then you can wrap as many times as you want. But that's the purpose, is just to wrap your own terms around it, and that gap between lines is what you collect.
Okay, give me like a specific example.
Specific example. We don't really do. Oh shoot, I froze again. Hold up. Go ahead, Angel.
That's okay. One thing that I did want to just kind of add to that is,
Yeah, please.
a lot of people that will ask my opinion on a wrap, they think it's going to be a great cash flow and all that, but then I look at it and they just went crazy with the numbers. Like, they're going to pay $3,000 a month, and they're going to wrap it now for $4,500 a month because they want a $1,500.
Oh, yeah.
Yet the normal, say, rent rate in the area is $3,200, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think wrapping is something that should be done very carefully. You should be very calculated. It should always still be within whatever a normal mortgage rate or a rent rate in that area is for a home.
Yep.
And there is, just so people know, there is kind of a general standard, a general calculation you use when wrapping a home, how you would multiply out the monthly payment, the down payment, things like that. But there's a lot of advantages to it as well, because you can get into a property, say, for $20,000 down. And when you wrap it, you actually wrap it, that down payment from your end buyer is $20,000, which covers that or more. So you can make some on the front end as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got some options there, to make something that normally wouldn't flow as an LTR very profitable. So.
Absolutely. So Pam asked, so on a wrap, you have 2 lenders to pay.
So you would have a servicing company handling this most of the time, and you would just make the one payment. They would disperse it usually. Correct, Angel? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So
almost always a servicing agent is in play. Yeah. And you do that for a couple of reasons, not only to protect the buyer, and because they want to stay abreast of what's being paid on that mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because most wraps, of course, are taken subject to. But you also want to ensure that those on-time payments will somewhat through DTI release the seller from that debt so they can go on and purchase something else and things of that nature.
Now, Angel, you are kind of like not even kind of, you are the Michael Jordan of transaction coordinators. I have seen your name all over the place. Your name is all over Google. Your name is all over the interwebs. Everybody wants you to handle all their stuff. It's like just the user experience that you provide, the knowledge that you come to the table with is unparalleled.
Well,
what are some of the things that you're seeing that people may have issues with when it comes to wrap as it relates to a TC?
Well, actually, I just had a client reach out because normally the strategy is wholesaling. But he was like, I think that we, in lieu, I don't know if everybody's aware, and I won't go into it because it's a hot topic right now, but there's a lot of legal things that are going on with subject to purchases right now. Rewind that back.
Let's rewind that.
So, he's a smart investor, right? So he is looking for ways to minimize his risks moving forward. Okay. So instead of just wholesaling a house now, he's like, I'm really kind of considering wrapping this to our end buyer. Instead, just, doing a wrap instead of just a wholesale fee. Right. Yep. And that way, so he reaches out and he's like, well, tell me what you think about this. So after some conversation back and forth, I'm like, absolutely, do that, because what that will provide you all now is the right of first refusal. So say, normally, if you just stayed in as the assigner, right, the wholesaler is the assigner. Normally, if you just stayed in, you took your assignment fee. After you've spent all this time building a relationship with your seller, even getting them there in the first place, right? They trust you, not your end buyer. They don't even know who your end buyer is, right? They trust you. So you're just, instead of just pulling yourself out as the assigner of that situation, he is now going to stay in it because he's going to purchase it subject to and wrap it to his end buyer. Okay. And in doing that, he is going to provide himself the right of first refusal. So now if the jerk end buyer on the end decides to default on the payments, he can take that back because he has the right of first refusal. Now, if he just assigned that property instead of wrapping it to the end buyer, right, he would have been out of the thing. The seller would have been ticked at him because he's the one that built the relationship with the seller, right? Yeah. And the end buyer gets to go be a jerk and not worry about anything. And seller's credit's screwed up now because he's in default, right? So those are the kind of conversations that I get to have with my clients. And maybe that's why they give me the shout out. I don't know. But, so you kind of help people walk through those situations and find the best ways for them to mitigate their risk in these types of things. So,
let's talk about that for a second, mitigating risk, because the money that you make is a direct reflection on the amount of risk you're willing to take. And usually the more risk you're willing to take, the higher profits you stand to make. So what are some of the things that people can do to help mitigate risk as it relates to wrapping?
Well, just as I said in my last field, that's one way.
Like maybe having a qualified TC in here to check over the paperwork and make sure that everything is up to snuff, as opposed to, it's not enough to just have somebody handle the paperwork and open up escrow, but have somebody who's familiar with these transactions to help go over the numbers, double check everything, underwrite the stuff, and then not only make sure that all of that makes sense, but as you said, make sure that everybody is on the same page so you don't end up wholesaling something to a buyer who intends to wrap it with maybe oh my gosh, look who it is.
Oh man.
What's going on?
Surprise!
You look fantastic, man. You didn't dress up on our account, did you?
No, he actually graduated today. So I just wanted
to, good job, Romeo.
So yeah, he got his new belt. So we're just now leaving now.
What belt is he up to now?
I don't know. I think what you get today? I don't know. That's a good question.
Next week.
Is it yellow?
No, it's an advanced white belt.
Advanced white belt. So he's currently got how many stripes? He got
Is it
a
like
white
beige
belt.
color or?
Don't get me the line. Is a white belt right now with 3 black stripes, a red stripe, and a blue stripe. And then next week is an advanced white. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a tan or whatever that looks like, but
No,
Working his way up the rainbow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's some belt with the white and black on it.
Oh, there you go. A white and
Nice.
That's sick. That's about
Love
5
it.
belts above where I'm at. So good for
Yeah,
Romeo,
I would
man.
say so.
That's fantastic.
Love it.
I mean, never to make Romeo upset.
What's going on, guys? Good to see all you guys' faces. I feel like crap. I've been on a daily dose of NyQuil and DayQuil, faithfully. So I'm not for sure what's going on with me.
Well, you look fantastic. You couldn't even tell, man. Your hair looks good, way better than mine. No, we're just talking about wraps, man. Angel's kind of giving us a little bit of insight into what wraps look like from a TC perspective, and some of the things you can do to kind of help mitigate and offset risk, and bringing in the right people to help with these transactions to ensure that the T's are crossed and the I's are rotted, and kind of all the things.
Amazing.
So speaking of wraps, I mean, you're kind of. I would like to let you. I know we were going to talk about like a specific example, but Chris, let's talk about what you're doing right now. The car that you are in, the vehicle that you're in right now.
Oh, yeah.
You're kind of. It's not necessarily a wrap, although you could sell it on. You purchased a car via a wrap.
That is correct.
Let's talk about that, for example. So for you guys who don't know what a wrap is, let's get into a couple specifics, and maybe we can even talk about. Actually, no, not even maybe. Let's talk about some of the things that Chris is doing with wraps, as it relates to vehicles, and then we'll also give a specific deal example. But Chris, so in essence, a wrap, like Angel and James were saying, we got Chris Angel on here now, by the way. Chris James Angel. So essentially, we've got either a property or a vehicle that has some kind of note on it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sell that asset to somebody else, typically at a higher price and or a higher interest rate than the original note. So kind of like that metaphor that James was using, where you have this, kind of think of it like a bullseye, and in the middle of this bullseye, you've got a note. So in Chris's case, Chris, the car that you purchased on a wrap, what was the payoff on that?
It was $52,000.
Okay, so there's a note right here for a vehicle. What kind of vehicle was it?
2021 Mercedes.
Okay, so he's got a 2021 Mercedes, or did you say 52,000?
52,000.
$52,000 note. Somebody else bought that subject to from somebody else, right?
That is correct.
So this note is still in person A's name. This person bought it subject to, which means they put the registration for the vehicle in their name, but the debt is still under the original person's name. Now, what they did was, I'm assuming they sold it to you at a higher price than $52,000.
Actually, this situation, normally it would be the case. You're 100% correct. But in this case, he did something called a mirror wrap. So he mirrored the initial terms of the initial seller to just me. No down payment, no nothing. No, literally nothing. Just mirrored the same exact terms because he actually bought another vehicle and couldn't afford this note. If he would have increased he had every opportunity to actually increase the monthly payment on this specific vehicle, but he didn't. He just literally mirrored the exact terms of the initial seller and just gave me and wrapped itself into it and then gave me the vehicle. Because he got in the situation, he transparently couldn't afford the payments, right? He bought a vehicle, then he realized he can't really afford the payments. So he wrapped the vehicle from another seller to me as a neutral party kind of thing. So it was pretty neat the way that transaction actually happened.
Gotcha. So you're making payments to the original note.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now what you're doing, what you could do in that situation is you could sell or finance it to somebody else essentially, but that's not what you're doing. You're taking that vehicle and you're making a lot of money with it on Turo.
Absolutely.
So explain that
Absolutely.
process real quick. What is Turo for people who don't know?
So
Mainly for people who live in Alaska, Chris, because everybody else knows what Turo is.
That's hilarious. So Turo is more so it's like a rental car business. You know, the national accounts like, you know, I think it's Rent a Car, Dollar General, Dollar. It's a national
It's a store.
Enterprise, Hertz, Alamo, National. They got different like national rental cars business, but Toro's actually the new Uber, so to speak. It's actually the sister partner of Uber. People didn't know that, but Toro is actually basically if you want to go visit someone or go on vacation, instead of going and waiting in line specifically at the airport, waiting for like Enterprise to get a vehicle, you can just get a vehicle cheaper, very cheaper. Not like so cheap that it doesn't make sense, but it is inexpensive specifically where you just need to find a vehicle when you get out the airport, and then literally either the vehicle will be right at the destination, and or you can travel to the destination. Like in my case, I have 4 vehicles on tour right now. Uh,
Mhm.
four vehicles, and they're all parked in my garage. Due to the fact of essentially, I park it at the airport? Yes, but that's going to cost a little bit money. But Toro, when it comes to Toro, is so convenient. Everything is done through the app. You can either do a selfless key. Keys can be left in a lockbox and or like a wherever your desire. All really depends on your comfortability, but it's been going amazing. I can't be thankful enough. There's another vehicle that's already in motion right now that will be delivered next Thursday. So I'm super excited about that specific one. But um, I started using Toro, I want to say about a year and a half ago for the first time, and I thought it was like more so too good to be true, like on the opposite end, as not as a host but as uh, a guest, right? And then
Mhm.
it was pretty seamless. It was actually in Vegas when we went to see Cody Sperber and all that good stuff, and
Yeah.
that's when I got the BMW and all that good stuff. I'm like, damn, I got the vehicle, and it was extremely easy. It was very convenient. That was the biggest thing. It was so convenient because I didn't have to wait in line. And a lot of people, and a lot of the national rental car companies, they actually changed some of the laws, and you got to be a certain age, which is normal. And also, there's sometimes credit worthiness. Now, there's people out there, they may not have the best credit. They may not have the best credit, and that's okay. I'm not saying, but when you go to Toro, they do have qualifications, but it's a little bit easier for you to actually rent a vehicle. So it's a lot of different things. And James, I'm actually seeing it says playing it safe and using the driveway. That's some issues, people dropping the cars off wherever. Um, there's that really depends on the host on where they want the car to be left. But I know I got a protocol as far as what that looks like. I got rules, regulations I already nailed down specifically. Perfect example, one of the vehicles, it was a 2023 Camry that just happened a couple days ago, where the guest dropped it off out on the exterior. It looked amazing, clean, and all that good stuff. But you open the door, it was a huge smell of weed. There's a no smoking policy. There is a no smoking policy. That's on their website. That's on my on mine as well.
That vehicle
And
must have passed through Alaska on his way to New York.
it got to a point where it was really bad. I had to use what do you call them? Actually, it's called. I bought 3 more today, actually, just in case the next person do it. It's like an odor eliminator. You leave it in the car for about 15 minutes to get rid of the smell, but even that didn't work. So it got to a point where, um, but basically, I'm telling you this because there's some pros and there's some cons when doing Toro, and you definitely gotta make sure you prepare for the worst and prepare for the best at the same time. You always want things to go great. There's times where the vehicle came by, and we came back specifically spotless. I'm like, oh, don't have to get it clean. I don't have to do it. Ready for the next guest. And it's phenomenal because I just got the Camry. I got that specific vehicle 3 weeks ago, almost 3 weeks. It will make 3 weeks, I think, this Wednesday coming up. And already made $1,400 off that one vehicle. And that's just a perfect example where you like you just got to do it. You really got to do it, because initially I was nervous at first. I'm like, damn, what if somebody crashed the vehicle? What if something happens? What if those other stuff? But I got 3 layers of insurance on the vehicle, from travel insurance, progressive, and like the mix of, it's a lot of different things we got on the vehicle. But if anything happens, of course we don't want nothing to happen, but we do have that insurance if um the vehicle can get in an accident, or the passenger or the driver gets hurt as well. So, but Turo can be a great thing. Turo can be a great thing. That's another business that we have. So, it's definitely going to expand. I'm gonna do it. I do got to hire now, so I definitely got to hire faster than I expected. But it's get to a point where it's becoming second nature. I can manage it now very well. And one thing I like about it, I can really control the times people can really book the vehicles. So, and yes, that was $1,400 net. Now, and there's different percentages you can actually do on the Turo, which a lot of people don't know. As far as you can do from 60% you all the way up to 90% you. It all depends on insurance, what the liability looks like, how much you're willing to cover if something happens. It really all depends on your risk factor. Now, me, I got a risk factor. Mine's pretty high. Mine is pretty high. So, mine is on a higher spectrum. Whereas I think mine is at 75%, if I'm not mistaken, for all my vehicles. And, and it's covered by, the things that's not covered by travel insurance is covered by progressive, so it kind of offsets each other to make it work. But yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's something that a lot of people should get into it from wherever the area they're in. Like, I know, Jesse, you're in Alaska. I think Anchorage will do Anchorage. Just make sure you get some trucks. Just
Pick up
trucks
a couple dog sleds.
Right.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. But I know that was a long-winded answer, so to speak. But yeah, Turo is just more so a rental car company. If you're looking for convenience, that's the best way to go.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a perfect. I really appreciate you sharing that. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about today, are these different exit strategies. And like you said, Turo is kind of like the Airbnb of the car industry. So like we have short-term rentals for houses. You can see Chris made 1,400 bone skis net in 1 week off of Airbnb and his Toyota. And by the way, Pam wants to know if you got stoned.
No, I don't. If you would have sat in the car for 2 seconds, you probably would. But it's so
I think
fun.
she was just asking in general. I don't think it was related to the car.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know.
So it's really neat how this stuff works out. You literally create money out of thin air. That's what's really cool about this whole thing. I remember the last wrap that I did was actually on a property here in Anchorage. I can give you guys these specific. Now, this was something that was really cool. Now, this isn't the standard. What we were able to do with this property was very, very cool, but it's not the standard of how most wraps go. I just want to preface with that so nobody leaves this thinking that, oh, this is how all wraps go. It's not how all wraps go. There's a lot of risk involved with doing wraps. So let's kind of deep dive a little bit about what that looks like. So on this specific property, I had a realtor that called me, and he said, Jesse, hey, I've got this seller who reached out to me. He bought this property. He was a veteran. So for those of you guys who don't know, when you have a veteran use their VA loan, they don't put any money down on their properties. They can literally go into a property a property and then purchase it using their VA loan with literally no down payment. That's an amazing entitlement that our veterans have to be able to allow them the ability to purchase a property. Now, the downside to that is you see this a lot. Veterans purchase homes, and in this case, he purchased a property. He bought this property for $200,000, and by the time he rolled in closing costs, agent commissions, They have something called a VA funding fee that can be several $1,000s. By the time you roll all that kind of stuff into his loan, he just rolled it into his loan, so he didn't have to come out of pocket for any of that. He owed, I think, like $215, somewhere around there. So he was upside down about 15 grand. So his loan was for $215,000. The property was worth $200,000. Again, the good news is he got into this property. He's now a property owner and didn't have to put any money out of his pocket down on this. The bad news is when he needed to sell it 6 months later, he called this realtor and said, hey, I need to sell this property. And the realtor says, well, the property is worth $209 and he owed I guess it was more than 6 months. It was like 11 months. So in 11 months, he paid it down to like where he owed like $211, I think, or $212. And the property had appreciated up to $209. So he was still upside down $2,000. So the agent's going through the numbers with him and he says, sir, Mr. Seller, you are going to have to cut a check for about $20,000 to sell your property to cover closing costs, commissions, all that fun stuff. He's like, well, I don't have 20 grand. And guys, this kind of, not to detour or anything, but this is why being active on social media is so stinking important. Because this realtor that reached out to me, to my recollection, I don't think he and I had ever formally talked, but he was following me on social media and saw some of the stuff that we were doing. So he ended up reaching out to me. And he said, hey, Jesse, I've got this. And he explained the situation. He said, guy's got no equity in it. He's got no money to sell this with a realtor on the market. He's like, do you have any ideas on what we can do? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I went over and visited with him and the seller. And basically we purchased the property subject to. And we purchased it for $0. Literally bought this property for less than the price of a cup of coffee. There was no agent commissions or anything like that. He hadn't officially hired him because he couldn't afford the agent. We did kick the realtor a little bit of money. But here's kind of the cool thing about this is we purchased this property. Like I said, the payoff on this was like $211, I think. So we bought it subject to, and basically the debt stayed in place. The deed got deeded over to our LLC, and we signed a contract. We open up escrow. Now, here's what's really cool about this. We open up escrow. As soon as we open up escrow, I knew that I did not have the time that was going to be required in order for me to find a wrap buyer. Now, a wrap buyer, Angel, talk about what a wrap buyer is. Like, what is niche about a wrap buyer? What makes them stand out from any other kind of buyer?
Well, generally, a end buyer for a wrap is someone who can't do it retail. So maybe they've got some credit blemishes, so they couldn't qualify for a loan. Maybe they don't have the down payment that's needed for a conventional loan. There could be several reasons, but it's basically a traditional buyer. They're looking for a traditional retail house. You know, they want to go in. It's already going to look pretty and all those things. They just may not be able to qualify for either the loan or the down payment.
Gotcha. Okay. So we've got people out here that, I mean, there's so many people that they're tired of being renters. They don't want to rent. I mean, if you look at what happened in the last 3 years, you got a lot of people where you got landlords that are selling their properties because of how prices are soaring. So obviously the renters have to get out and they have to go find somewhere new to live, or they're increasing the rental rates. And it's forcing these people who are tenants to move out of the neighborhoods. And they love the communities that they're in. They love the schools that their kids go to. They love the church that they go to. And they want to be homeowners. But like Angel said, they don't have the ability. They don't qualify traditionally. Yeah. So that's who we're looking to solve this problem. That's who an ideal wrap buyer is. So in order to go find those people, James, where would be some good places to start for finding a wrap buyer?
I'm not an expert on this, but just from what I've learned in the past, you can go to realtors. I mean, you can go to title companies, you can go to credit. The those credit agencies, huh?
Credit repair people.
Yeah, credit repair people.
Now,
I
be
mean,
more
even the-
specific, real quick. What do you mean, credit repair people? Like,
People. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
People that have sought out professional help in repairing items on their credit report so they can qualify for a traditional mortgage.
Okay. So you're going to go to credit repair companies
Correct.
and ask them if they have anybody who is trying to
Who-
repair their credit and also
Yes.
maybe trying to
Because
purchase
look,
a home.
Absolutely, because you're going to have people in situations where, like you said, maybe they were in a lease and now they're getting close to the end and they really have no other option. So they reach out to a credit repair person because their first thought is, I need to clean up my credit so we can qualify for a house when our lease is up, right? But it's not going to be done in time to do it. So those are the people that are great in buyers because they can still get into that retail purchase with blemished credit, and it gives them time to get the credit together so they can refinance somewhere down the road.
Absolutely. Okay, so we got credit repair companies. Be a great source to start. What about loan officers?
Absolutely, they know who got turned down.
100% they do.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I think we're upwards of almost 70% now of people who go in to purchase loans conventionally get denied.
Yeah.
That is huge.
But it's a
What
huge
better
potential, right?
Oh my gosh, what better resource? I can't even think of one better resource just right off the get-go for people who make up a big pool of wanting to be home buyers but don't qualify. Amazing. So we open up escrow on this property. We're buying it subject to. The seller's not getting anything. He's moving down to Florida. He's just happy that he doesn't have to rent this thing anymore. He doesn't have to be on the beach, on South Beach in Miami with a Mai Tai in his hand, worrying about leaky-ass toilets in a condo here in Anchorage, Alaska. So that's the problem that we
solve for him.
specific,
Jesse.
What?
That was very specific.
Man, he's just telling me what he wants. I'm just over there asking questions, and he's telling me. Because I'm telling him the first thing, you guys know the first thing I do when I talk to somebody is I'm trying to disqualify them, trying to figure out why I'm not a good fit. So I'm asking him, I'm like, dude, I would be a hypocrite if I told you to just sell this to me. Like, why don't you just rent this thing? And that was basically what he said. That was it. That was his thing. And I was like, oh, all right, well, fair enough. Well, that's a problem I can solve for you. I'll do the leaky toilets, man. So we ended up opening escrow. And during the time that we were in escrow, I hired somebody else. Now, I didn't pay them up front. I said, hey, this is what I'm willing to pay you if you go and find this wrap buyer for me. And this was what he specialized in. And so we got this under contract. We opened up escrow. I brought somebody else in to find the wrap buyer so I didn't have to deal with it. So I'm still into this guy's $0 right now, okay? In the time that we had escrow open, it was like 30 days or 40 days or something like that. In the time that he had escrow open, I had somebody else find a wrap buyer for this property. Mm-hmm. What we ended up doing is we ended up selling it. Basically, think of it like this. Like James was saying, we come up with different terms that encapsulates the original note. So the original note was remaining was like 211 or 212, and we sold it. Basically, think of it like seller financing. So we sold it seller financing for $250,000, and I think it was at like 7% interest or something like that. Now the PITI on the original note, by the way, was like $1,600, including the HOA. It was like 16 and some change. Rental rates were $1,700. So right off the get-go, I was like, well, I can buy this subject too, but I'm not going to be able to make money on it as an LTR, right? Like you and James were saying, that was the first exit strategy I went for. I was like, all right, well, what can I rent it for? PITI and HOA was $1,600. Rental rate was $1,700. Couldn't do anything with it. So that's why we went to a wrap. Like, all right, what other exit strategy can we do on here? So we sold it for $250,000 purchase price at like 7% interest, something along those lines. And what that came out to be like $2,100 or something like that. And I think we also ended up rolling taxes. We ended up passing the taxes and insurance prices off to the new note. Anyway, I don't remember the specific details of it, but it was $2,100 is what they owed us every month. And we got 10% down. So at closing, guys, here's what's really cool. And again, in the time that we were in escrow, we found a wrap buyer. And what we were able to do was the closing that we would have with the wrap buyer, we were able to line up. So we closed on the same day that we were to purchase this property subject to. So they were the same day. So here's what's really cool is we were able to use the $25,000 of the down payment from the wrap buyer to cover the closing costs and pay the guy out who found us the wrap buyer. And then everything closed on the same day. We closed on it, and then the wrap buyer closed on it. So then they owned that new property. And then we made, I don't remember what it was. I don't know, maybe somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000, I think, is what we pocketed. So all of that was done. And then now we're, cash flowing, about $500 a month off of it. And the cool thing about wraps is that we're not the landlords. We're not dealing with leaky toilets. Like this is their home. Just like Chris. Chris purchased this property or this car on a mirror wrap, and it's Chris's car. Chris is responsible for changing cracked windshields. He's responsible for doing the maintenance, the upkeep. I don't know, Chris, do you change winter tires and stuff on those vehicles, or no? You got a good set of like all seasons.
No, I got to change it as well.
Okay. So that's your responsibility though, right? That's not anybody else's responsibility. That's your responsibility. It's your car.
Yep.
Even though the debt is in somebody else's name. So same thing when you find these wrap buyers, they're the new homeowner. That's the cool thing about this whole thing is that you're still cash flowing. We got somewhere between 15 and 20 grand up front, and we don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Now, again, that's not the standard for wraps. Most people, you're probably more often than not going to find your wrap buyer before you close escrow, so you're out of it $0.
Well, I was going to touch on that too, Jesse, because it's an important point, because a lot of times people shy away from doing wraps because they don't know how to execute all the pieces of it, right? Mm-hmm. So perfect example. I know the guy that you use for that. There's people out there that can help you with that. Don't let that stop you from turning a property into a wrap because you think you're going to struggle finding your end buyer. There are people out there that do that. That's all they do. And they're great resources, because Jesse and I we were talking about one some time ago, and I reached out to him, and at that time he was like, Angel, in that specific area or whatever, you might want to shy away from that because he's doing that every day, right? So he sees that things are not either picking up or slowing down, right? And he was like, right now we can't find buyers in that area. So, those kind of people are great resources because they can keep you from making a mistake. They can guide you and say, wrap might not be the best thing right now. Go ahead and go with the lease option because right now wrap buyers are hard to find in that area for whatever reasons, because they're keeping up in those markets. They know why things are going the way that they are. So just wanted to throw that out there, that wraps can be a really intimidating exit strategy. So there are plenty of things within that exit strategy where people can be a resource for you to get you to the finish line.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up. That is such a big thing. I read a post from Pace this morning actually as well. Like, he made a big long post about nothing to do with wraps, but in short, without going into the specifics, it was just about vetting, about doing due diligence, especially with the people that you're working with. And so I love that you brought that up. There's no reason for anybody to feel like they're stuck or like they don't know what those next steps are, because there's nothing but an abundance of people that are here that are ready and willing to help you guys with this sort of information, understanding these things. Don't feel like you have to execute it. Like Angel said, ask around, like vet the deal. Yeah. Say, hey, what are you guys seeing in this area? Now, real quick, let's touch on this real quick before we kind of wrap this up. We've talked about midterms. We've talked about STRs. We've talked about wraps. You've mentioned pad splits a couple different times, James. For everybody who doesn't know, what is a pad split and why is that a good exit strategy?
So pad split essentially is, so you're taking one house and all the bedrooms inside the house are separate tenants paying for their own separate, they're all separate leases. In a roundabout way. There's actually a more specific way that it's structured to protect you and to make sure that, you know, you don't have any troubles if someone's not paying. You know, there's things that are done by pad split themselves to kind of protect everybody. But essentially, you buy, you know, a 2,400 square foot house. We just closed on a property in Jacksonville this last week that we're doing a pad split on. Beautiful house, absolutely stunning. And you would think that, you know, like, why would I touch this thing? It's, you know, it's gorgeous. But we sent a reno crew in there right off the bat, and we're tearing down walls and putting walls up because we want to fit another 3 bedrooms inside this house, 3 or 4 bedrooms. And that's going to almost double the income. So it's going to allow us more opportunity to make, you know, our money back quicker. And so that's kind of one of the benefits of pad split. I'd say one of the downsides is it's not everywhere. So this is for specific markets, and you can find out if your market is one of the markets that is performing well by going on the pad split website and just taking a look. If it's there, then there's pad splits there already.
Okay. What risks are associated with doing a pad split? Why would somebody not do a pad split?
Well, I mean, you got more tenants in there, so you've got it's not a family anymore. You know, these people don't know each other, so there's a larger chance that, you know, something could happen between tenants. So you have to kind of, you know, do your research, mitigate that interaction, and try to minimize that interaction, so where you're not having tenants interact with each other all the time. That's a pretty solid risk. But when you start dealing with more people, then you start dealing with more personalities, and then, you know, personalities clash,
Mm-hmm.
and they can cause problems.
Now, do you vet everybody who goes through in that pad split? Like, are you vetting tenants and things every week and handling all the paperwork and all that kind of fun stuff, or what's all involved with doing a pad split? Who does all that stuff?
So that would be pad split. So pad split does, you essentially sign a lease with pad split. They create, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm not saying this exactly correct, but they essentially make an LLC, and then these tenants that end up getting put in there, pad split vets them, they pay pad split, and then they essentially make them members of this LLC, and they just utilize their member benefits, which happens to be that bedroom. And so then if something happens, they're not paying, they need to move out, then pad split just, you know, removes that member from the LLC, and then that mitigates the whole foreclosure process. Not foreclosure, the kicking someone out.
Eviction.
Eviction. There we go. Couldn't think of the word.
Uh-huh.
But kind of alleviates that eviction process, and then it allows for quicker transition from one tenant to another.
Okay.
So they're doing the vetting, essentially. Pad split is.
So tons of opportunity to cash flow even more from pad split. I would imagine, like you said, you have a construction crew essentially that's coming in. They're putting up walls. They may be tearing some walls down. They're kind of rearranging the inside of that house to accommodate more people, more tenants, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's also going to increase your overall entry fee to get into the property.
Correct. It will. It increases your entry, but the purpose of doing that is to kind of offset that entry cost with the profit that you're going to be making monthly. So that's where you have to do your due diligence. Pad split has contractors that they recommend, and they're usually really good. Like they're good about what they're doing. They're efficient, so they're less likely to have higher construction bills. So the recommendations from pad split definitely help when you're choosing that. What was I going to say? There's also other things that we have learned. We have amazing contractors out in Jacksonville right now working on this property that we just closed, and some things they brought up such as the septic. I mean, you could have a brand new septic system inside of a house that handle 5 people or 4 people, a family, like a full family. But now you start adding bedrooms, anything above 5, 5 bedrooms. Now you've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 adults using the same septic system.
Yeah.
You're going to have to upgrade it or double it. The AC will have to be upgraded because each room is going to have consistent airflow. Otherwise, you end up getting sick tenants. The common areas, you're going to need 2 fridges for anything more than, say, 5 people. So just things like that these construction workers kind of brought forward right off the bat. That's why you need to hire a construction worker or a construction company that knows what they're doing and is efficient with their time. And they kind of give you all this stuff. So
amazing insight, bro. Thank you for sharing that. And you touched on something that we were talking about early on in the show. This is a perfect example where you can buy a property, because that's what we're doing, right? We're buying properties creatively. And sometimes, let's say the entry is around 10%. Let's say it's even at 12%. And in order for us to do let's say the entry is around 12% and the cash on cash is 10%. Terrible deal. Or like you said, just the opposite happens, right? Where you have an entry fee that is at 1% or 5%, well below usually that 10% that most people are looking for. But the cash on cash is just terrible. It's at 5%. So in that type of a situation, pad split is a great way to kind of offset that stuff where even if your entry is above 10%, let's say it's at 12% or even 15%, it's going to be a lot higher with pad split. Like James just got done articulating, there's going to be extra added costs that come along, not just construction costs, but other things are going to have to go into the property to accommodate that type of an asset. And it may bump you up to 15 or even 20%, but that cash on cash is going to even skyrocket, sometimes upwards of 30, 35. Have you seen it upwards of 40% on some of these deals that you've underwritten, James?
Yep. Yeah. 2 of the properties that we're looking at right now, the entry fee is almost 50% of what the house is worth. But
the entry fee is?
Yeah, the entry fee is pretty high up there. Maybe not 50, we're maybe like 30, 40. But it's up there, right? And that's because of those construction costs to get those rooms in place. But that cash on cash is sitting at 30, almost 40%.
There you go.
So it just depends on what you're looking to do. And pad split is a great opportunity. And like I said, though, it's not everywhere. So this has to be, you have to do your due diligence. You have to figure out whether or not the area that you're looking at is going to work for it. And generally, if you're in an area with pad split, if the property's next to, like a major road, restaurants, dining, shopping, all that stuff, you're going to do great.
Amazing, bro. Love that. Well, thank you guys. This has been really awesome. We need to do another deep dive on some more exit strategies. I mean, we went really granular on here, which I love. So if you guys are watching, please give Angel and James some love. This was awesome. We should definitely do a part 2 and start getting into more of the granular side of some of the other exit strategies as well. Thank you guys for being on here.
Yeah, and also next week on Closers Roundtable, we'll have the legendary Daryl Ellison on to talk about his journey and really specifically about wraps. So nobody wants to miss that. He's got a lot of gems to drop.
Yep.
Absolutely. I love Daryl. Love that you guys are doing this. For those of us that don't know, what is the Closers Roundtable?
So the Closers Roundtable, I didn't know if I was muted or not. So essentially, right, it's a Zoom we're doing every Saturday. I think it's noon Eastern time, right, Angel? I'm terrible with the weird time. And 10:30 for normal time, so Mountain Standard. And then essentially what we do is we pick topics, right? Kind of like how we're doing exit strategies right now. We'll pick topics, we'll go over them. It's kind of like an open floor concept. So you bring your questions, you bring whatever sort of expertise, knowledge. We've had some amazing guests on there that spit some amazing knowledge, and so it's just a way for all of us to kind of get together, have like a little mini mastermind essentially, and just kind of come up with solutions to real problems that people are having. We can also help close leads. No one really brings leads that often, but that is something that we can definitely help with as well. So
I love that.
it's just a great
Jesse
place.
James. I love these names, you guys. Cracking me up. Cracking me up.
Chris James and Jesse James. Chris Angel.
Chris Angel and Jesse James, man. I love that. Well, cool, guys. So where can everybody find your guys' Zoom that you guys do every week? Where is this? If people want to get involved with what you guys are doing and what you guys have to share and teach, where's all that happening? Where can they do that?
We actually do it right within the House of Cards Facebook page. So you have to be a member of the House of Cards to access it. So if you're not, get in there and get signed up.
Yep. And we'll post about it every week, so you won't miss nothing. The Zoom link will be posted. Yeah. So really simple to find.
Awesome. Chris, do you want to answer this question? We got Brandy Farmer here. Thank you for being here, Brandy. She is a first-time listener.
I'm Facebook, right?
You didn't do your spiel today.
She says, I'm not sure why my name isn't coming up.
Oh, your name is probably not coming up because you have not granted StreamYard access to have your name visible. So there's the 3 dots at the top of your right screen from StreamYard. Click on that, hit settings, and just grant StreamYard access. Then we will be able to see who we're speaking to.
Just in time for
Brandy.
next week.
Yes.
Yeah, appreciate you being here, Brandy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Any last words real quick before we hop off? Chris, are you doing the next one with us in 10 minutes, with me in 10 minutes, or no?
Negative.
Raj, okay. Sounds good. You guys got any last words real quick before we hop off?
No, just
had a great time today.
I got something. So essentially, there's 6 weeks left in the end of the year. That is crazy. 6 weeks. Just throwing that out there. 6 weeks.
Wild.
This year flew about too quickly. So I just want to throw this out there. So Jesse, I, and James, of course, everybody know what our goal is and what we're looking to achieve. We're trying to acquire 50 more doors by the end of the year. We're halfway there. If you guys have any leads that you're working on, or you can't find a buyer, that's a creative deal, send it our way. We most likely may be your buyer. Of course, the margin's got to be there. It's got to make sense. The numbers got to make sense. But if you're struggling to find a buyer, feel free to reach out. Or if you're struggling with the lead, specifically reach out to any one of us on the screen. Any one of us can hop on the phone and have those conversations or help you navigate the next conversation with that seller or potential lead.
Love that.
What market?
Actually,
Facebook
Brandy,
user. Brandy says, what market? We are in all 50 states. All 50 states, all the counties. Have a potential sub to in corporates. Corporates kids. Hey, Jennifer, how you doing?
Whoop.
Corporate Chris, I believe we just pulled the trigger on the Corporate Christie 2
Jennifer
days
actually
ago.
walked it.
Yeah, she walked it.
She walked it for us.
Oh, amazing. Love it. So yeah, absolutely. So we're buying pretty heavily. Of course, we're making smart decisions. The numbers just gotta make sense, guys. We're not gonna force the deal to work. We could tell you exactly how the deal should look like versus what you're bringing us. But absolutely, we love to get deals to the finish line. We just want to see everyone win. That's all.
Love it. Let us put another $100,000 in your pocket for the end of the day. Like, we want to be your number one buyer.
Get you that Christmas money.
So Illinois. So the caveat about Illinois, James and I just had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday. Was it yesterday, James?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yep.
He kind of opened our eyes a little bit to Chicago, Illinois. Just a little bit, not all, just a little bit.
We're not fully committed.
Right,
Not going
right.
down to the deep
You
end
have to
here.
pull back the curtain a little bit.
Right. You know, I was peeking through, but
Yeah.
not yet. but yeah, we definitely gotta. I think as an internal, biz, we gotta relook at that specific market, Jesse, James, and see exactly if we really want to explore that.
Yeah.
Groovy, baby.
Amazing.
Cool.
But that's all I have for you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you guys off.
No, glad you threw that out there. Guys, we want to be your guys' number one buyer. Please send us anything and everything you guys have. If it's creative, that's really all we're looking at. So don't feel like you guys have to do all this extra work and try to do all this underwriting and figure out, do the numbers work for them? Do the numbers not work for them? Dude, we will tell you that. We made it so easy for you. Just send us all your shit and let us put some money in your pocket. That's what it is we're trying to do. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys again. Thank you, James and Angel, for jumping on. Appreciate you. Chris, I hope you and Romeo have a beautiful day, brother. Tell Romeo, congratulations again, man.
Yeah,
That is
congrats.
awesome.
Go get some ice cream.
Yeah, that's where we're about to go get something to eat.
Get that Oreo McFlurry, baby. Love it. Well, hope you guys have an awesome day, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to the House of Cards podcast with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and have learned something new about real estate investing. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more tips and tricks. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time.